and we're going to go ahead and work on that here. So let's go ahead and grab our pencil tool. Now, if you remember back when we first created the shape of this shirt, we used the pencil tool to do this. And to be honest with you, I think that it worked really well. I don't think that it needs to be mathematically precise as far as, tracing over the existing shirt. I think that folds are folds. So let's go ahead and jump into outline mode here. And you'll notice here that we're getting quite a large number of paths here that are producing outlines for us. So at this point, I like to come over here and begin hiding each one of my layers that might just be producing additional outlines that are kind of getting in my way. So let's go ahead and hide a few of these. Now, one just a little bit of added information for you here, being that we are in outline mode, notice here that the eyeballs have changed. Now, we can switch one of these layers out of outline mode by itself without adjusting any of the other layers by simply coming over here and control clicking on that layer. Notice that one eyeball changed back to normal. So again, we have the entire shirt base there. So just a little bit of added information about outline mode for you. Let's go ahead and hide a few more of these. We'll hide the hands. Let's see here. We'll come in here and hide that extra hair. That's producing a lot. All right. So now we've got a nice clean area to work from. Let me hide the pants as well. I'm going to work on that shirt shadows layer. And really, at this point, it's just going to be about isolating the shapes that create these shadows. So let's go ahead and grab in, let's just grab a nice gray here. Let's go ahead and grab, what is that, 60 or 70%? And we're going to go ahead and draw shapes with this. So let's come in here and let's go ahead and look at this wrinkle first. Now, you might be inclined to think that the shape only is in this area, but there's a real subtle shadow that extends all the way out to about here with this shape. So I'm just going to kind of come in here, and let's just kind of quickly draw in the shape of a wrinkle here. Sort of like that. Now at this point, I'll probably come in and smooth these out just a little bit, maybe even grab my Convert Anchor Point tool and stretch that out just a little bit. But, for the most part, this is a pretty good shadow there. So we're going to go ahead and roll with that. Let's go ahead and click off that, and we're going to move on. Let's go ahead and we'll just pick out a few of these wrinkles. Now, there's a lot of wrinkles in this shirt, and I probably won't be able to get to anywhere near all of them in this one lesson, but let's go ahead and focus on this wrinkle right here. This wrinkle is pretty different. It's producing a nice variety of different shadows here. We have a very sharp shadow all the way down here to where we have more of a diffused shadow. So I'm going to come in here, and let's go ahead and start right about here. Just going to draw in this shape. And let's go ahead and bring that out sort of like that. Bring this little leg of the shadow out like so. And we'll just close that off. So that actually isn't quite big enough, so I'm going to come in and let's just make a few modifications to that. We'll smooth that out some. And I'm going to be a little bit picky about how the shadow sits in relation to the edge of the shirt here. I want that to not cross over at all, because this is actually sort of the button-down front of the shirt that's producing this shadow. So I'm going to be really kind of picky as far as what this shadow looks like. We'll just come in here and kind of stretch those out just a little bit. Switch back over to our pencil tool and continue on smoothing that out. Maybe rotate this one around just a little bit here. And I tell you what, let's go ahead and, after we've got this shape exactly where we want it to be, let's go ahead and work on some coloration for these shadows, because these shadows are producing a different degree of shadows from different parts of these shapes. So let's go ahead and jump out of outline mode here. And you'll see here that we need to go ahead and select those shapes first. Let's go ahead and just give them that gray color here. All right, great. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring back some of these layers here. Just sort of like that. And let's go ahead and begin applying some gradients to these. Let's come up and we'll choose this shape first here. And I'm going to go ahead and apply a linear gradient. Just sort of like that. Let's grab our gradient tool, and I'm going to go ahead and drag down a white here for the brightest color. And we're just going to focus on kind of one part of the shadow at a time. Let's go ahead and kind of focus on the part of the shadow that's right up here underneath sort of what is developing into the collar of the shirt. So I'm going to kind of just zoom in on that area here. And we're going to just draw that gradient out a little bit. Now, at this point, you don't feel restricted to just using the linear gradients. I know that we just used those in the hair examples a lesson or two ago, but in many instances, a radial gradient was better for what I was doing. So let's come in here and we'll just adjust that midpoint just a little bit here. And let's go ahead and shorten that up. Just trying to get that nice, crisp shadow right along that inside edge here. And obviously that's not going to be black, so let's go ahead and change the color of that. We'll come over here and grab our HSB sliders again. And I'm going to go ahead and brighten that up quite a bit. And let's go ahead and maybe saturate it a little bit too. And we'll brighten that up even more here. I want this to be a fairly warm shadow. And that looks pretty good. We'll go with that for now. So we've got the first gradient applied to this shape here. Now I'm going to come in at this point and let's go ahead and apply another gradient, again over in our appearance panel. So I'll just select that first fill that we've created here. I'm going to go ahead and create a new fill based on that one here. So it's basically got the exact same gradient layered on top of the first one here. And I tell you what we need to do. We need to go ahead and reposition this gradient so that we get that nice soft shadow. So notice here with the default blend mode setting, it actually completely obliterates our first gradient. So that's definitely not what I want to do. So let's come over here and maybe say darken. And you can see here now that basically we're just using this gradient to darken the gradient that's underneath it. So if the gradient underneath it is lighter than this gradient, it's going to use this gradient's information. I'll just kind of come in here. We'll stretch that out just a little bit. And I may actually have this a little bit too saturated, but we'll go ahead and adjust that in between lessons. Not a big deal for right now. Hit Control-0 to go out to the full artboard, and we'll zoom back in here. All right, great. Now I'm not going to go ahead and play with this too much longer. I'm just going to maybe tweak this a couple more times. Just see how close we can get this. Because I want to move on to this next particular shape here. We've drawn two shapes, and to be honest, there's quite a few shapes here to draw. So this is basically the process I would use for creating these wrinkles here. Now, let's go ahead and take this particular shape, and we'll just drag that thumbnail from the appearance panel and drop it on top of this new shape here. You can see now we have those two gradients. So I'm going to actually go ahead and select, let's go ahead and hide this one, and let's go ahead and select the bottommost gradient. So we'll come in here, and let's go ahead, actually let's jump into outline mode and kind of look at this shadow. It looks like the darkest part of this shadow is down here near the bottom. I'll just turn off smart guides here. Down here near the bottom where this fold is a little bit closer to the fabric on the other side of the fold. So let's go ahead and grab that gradient tool again. And we'll just kind of begin bringing that up here. I'm going to set that midpoint a little closer to that 50% mark. Maybe shorten that up just a bit and rotate it around some. It's not looking too bad. We may shorten that up even more here just to get that nice diffused edge to that wrinkle there. And I'm going to go ahead and rotate that around just a little bit more here. Even shorten that up some. And let's bring that midpoint in some. Alright, so we got that first gradient set. Again, I'm going to go ahead and select the shape. Let's select the second gradient here, and I want to make this a little crisper right down in this area. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw that gradient in sort of like that. Now keep in mind that this one is set to darken. So if we bring this over, it's actually not having a whole lot of effect. Let me go ahead and adjust that midpoint here. And let's see here. Let's go ahead and maybe adjust this one over to multiply and see what that does. Actually, I see the problem. Let's go ahead and go back to darken. We actually have that gradient hidden. So there we go. There's our gradient. Just kind of bring that in kind of slowly here. And I tell you what, let's come over here and we're going to add one more color stop. I'm going to go ahead and bring this over sort of like that. And rotate that around. And again, I'll probably play with these just a little bit in between lessons just to kind of get these gradients exactly where I want. I think when you're creating fabric and folds in fabric like this, it's really important to get your gradients placed exactly where you want them. Otherwise, that shadow's not going to be believable. So obviously, this shape needs a bit more work. I'll go ahead and draw in a few more of these different shapes for the shadows and the folds in our character's shirt. But I don't want to spend much more time doing the exact same thing here with you. So I tell you what, in the next lesson, we're going to pick up where we leave off here. And we're going to shift our attention down to her pants. We haven't done a whole lot with those yet, but remember, we've got that black silhouette shape here to work with. So again, in the next lesson, we'll pick up where we're leaving off here and move on to our character's pants.